Hello, welcome to Stories in Focus. I'm your storyteller host, Ellouise Schoettler. So glad you stopped by. Today we have a storyteller producer as our guest, and she is from Virginia, from this very area, and her name is Jessica Piscitelli, and I'm very glad you're here, Jessica. Welcome.
Hi, Ellouise.
Yeah, I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. I have some questions, you know. Now, you are a teller.
Yes.
And where do you tell most?
These days, mostly in Virginia. Since, we'll get into this, I'm sure, but since I started Better Said Than Done, most of the shows I've been doing have been through that group, and we are a Virginia storytelling group.
Okay. Now, well, then let's just hop right to that. She has told me that she started off her storytelling at Speakeasy DC downtown, and then she decided to form her own group, Better Said Than Done.
Yes.
And which you are the producer of that group.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did that come about? What made you decide to do that?
Well, I guess it was 2010. I'm on the board of a charity in Reston, Virginia, and we were thinking of ways to raise money, and I said, I can put on a storytelling show. So I did, and it was fun, and then they wanted me to do it again, so I did, and it was fun, and then I had all these people coming up to me saying, well, you should do that again, and you should do that at this venue, and you should do that at that venue, and we need this in Virginia. And then I was like, well, okay, let me do this right. So I came up with a name and incorporated and got a group of wonderful storytellers together and sort of made something formal out of it.
Okay, now, you sort of tossed that off, you got a name. But getting a name is not an easy thing. How did you come up with Better Said Than Done?
Actually, it was, the short story is that I brainstormed it with a group of friends and came up with a list, and then narrowed that down to a shorter list of just things that to me conveyed the idea of storytelling. The longer story and the maybe more personal story is we had narrowed it down to one or two names, and I was going back and forth between the two of them, and I slept on it. And that night I had a dream, and this is about a month after my dad passed away. I had a dream where my dad said, "What about Better Said Than Done?"
Wow.
And I woke up the next day, and I woke up with this thought, Better Said Than Done, in my head, and that hadn't been on the list. And I wrote everyone and said, I had a dream, let's do that. And everyone said it was a good idea, so.
Great, great. I love stories like that where you have the presence of someone you've loved who comes and sort of gives you a hand.
Yeah.
That makes it even more important to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he was always good with words, so.
Well, you tell many stories about your dad.
I've told a couple, yeah.
I've heard several. That, what does that do for you as a storyteller when you're telling stories about him?
Well, you know, someone wonderful I know told a story about one of her relatives called Finding Gus, and I think it's very similar to that kind of experience. It one, keeps them alive, and two, it keeps them alive within you, but it also brings them to life for people who don't know them.
That's right.
So it's a healing process, I think.
Well, I've always felt it was a healing process, and that it's an important thing to do, the keeping them there, you know, not letting them go.
Right.
And I think that's what we say when, you know, you're talking about. But I love this business about you had a dream. You know, now, you still do mostly personal, true stories. Do you still lean that way with your tellers and with the way that you put together a show? Yeah,
I haven't ventured into, you know, storytelling for children or folk tales or anything like that. That could be fun too, but so far I've only done the true personal stories.
Well, when you go to the folk tales, look up a folk tale called The Peddler of Swatham. It's an old English tale, and it's about a man who had a dream.
Oh, okay.
I think, you know, so as soon as you said that, I had a dream. It made me think of that story.
Okay.
You know. Now, where are you performing with Better Said Than Done right now?
We have 3 shows coming up, actually. February 25th, we're going to be at Epicure Cafe for Truth, Justice, and the American Way of Lying. And we've not been to Epicure Cafe before as a performance. I've been there just to have drinks and food. And that's in Fairfax, and it's an intimate setting. It should be a lot of fun. And then on March 17th, St. Patty's Day, we're doing The Luck of the Irish at Jam and Java in Vienna. And then March 31st, I think you're going to be with us for Swan Day.
Yes.
So
yeah. Where are you going to do that?
The Mellow
Mushroom?
Mellow Mushroom, thank you. Yeah.
Okay,
And
great.
I think that's from 1 to 3 in the afternoon. Yeah.
People may not know that Swan Day is an annual performances of all kinds of different arts here in the Washington, D.C. area to celebrate women in the art.
Yes.
You know,
Support
and
women artists now.
yes, yes. And so it's a very valuable thing to do. So be sure that you watch for it March 31st. There was a question that I had, and I wanted to ask you. You use that tag for every one of your shows. You come up with a title that sort of helps people to sort out their stories.
Yes.
What I've wanted to ask people who do that is, how do you come up with those titles?
So far, it's just been, again, brainstorming. So for Truth, Justice, and the American Way of Lying, I was just thinking of what could be a fun theme. And I thought of truth, justice, and then I was thinking, if you're having truth, you got to have lies.
Yes.
So that's where that came from. And then the second title is stories about big fat liars, criminal minds, and the search for truth. And that's the part that basically, that's my way of giving the storytellers more to work with, because I feel like if you just say truth and justice, then people are like, oh, I don't really have a good story about justice. But then if you bring in big fat liars and criminal minds, then maybe you can work with that.
Exactly. That seems to be a device that many storytelling groups use to sort of put that together. Do you think that people rely on the title, or they just come for the storytelling?
Attending, like audience members. I think that there are some titles that are catchier than others. So, Speakeasy DC, for instance, when they have a show that's got you know, a sexy title, I think that I've been to some shows there where they have a huge audience, and other shows where their audience isn't, you know, jam-packed, and I think that that has something to do with the title. Now, a lot of people who come to our shows are friends of mine, friends of the storytellers, that type of thing, but those people who don't know us and who have never been to a show and read about it in the paper or online, I think in those cases the title really matters.
Yeah. I noticed that your Jam and Java, the Epicurean Cafe, Mellow Mushroom, you're really looking for places to take storytelling into the community, aren't you? How's that working?
Well, you know, for me, my mission has been, other than with Swan Day, which is a DC-based day, has been to bring storytelling to Virginia. And it's partly out of laziness, because I'm a Virginian and I don't like going into DC at night. You know,
Shame on you.
I do it. I still go, but I try to avoid it as much as possible. So I wanted to bring it local. And I think the other thing with Virginia, Northern Virginia, there's a ton of people, and most of us are very cultured, and we want to go see DC shows. We just don't always want to have to go to DC. So I think it's been more successful than I thought it would be, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, our last show at Jam and Java, it was standing room only.
Fabulous.
We couldn't get enough, you know, chairs in there. So.
Do you see, or are you beginning to be able to sort of get a glimpse of repeaters, of people who are coming back?
I don't have enough shows under my sleeve to see a pattern yet, but I have been doing sign-up sheets, and every show I've gotten new names. So our newsletter list is growing. So I'm sure in time I'll start seeing a pattern.
Okay, because it's really great if you're putting that out there in the community and people are beginning to follow you, you know, that they'll be your repeaters, because they bring other people.
Yeah, yeah. And then also what we're trying to do is, unlike some of the other shows in the area, we have an invitation-only storytelling group. So the people who tell For Better Said Than Done have been invited to tell For Better Said Than Done. But we want to keep an aspect of the openness about it, of storytelling being open to everyone. So we bring a first-timer on stage for every show.
I've noticed that, yeah.
And so at every show, I invite people, if they're interested in telling a story, to contact me, and we'll work with them and we'll get them up there. Because I think that's also an important part of it, not only for getting, finding great talent out there, but also for bringing in new circles of people.
Okay, that's good. Tell me about yourself. And you are a teller yourself. And you said with Better Said Than Done and with Speakeasy. How do you see your own stories? Where are they coming from?
Well, in the past, when I've done shows for Speakeasy or Fan-Freaking-Tastic, which I love saying that, Fan-Freaking-Tastic, I've just come up with an idea for a story based on the theme. So, if the theme was Fight Club, I thought about a fight that I got into. But now that I'm coming up with the themes myself, sometimes I come up with the story first. I'm like, oh, I really want to tell the story about the time I ran a marathon. What can I make a theme about that isn't going to be about marathon running, but can include that? So it's kind of working the other way now.
That's really rich, isn't it? Where that you can use yourself as a barometer, sort of, or a catalyst. Catalyst is probably a better word for the titles, and then the show itself or the work itself becomes a prod for you to come up with a story.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Although I will say The Luck of the Irish was not my idea. I was trying to come up with something that would be a tip of the hat to, St. Paddy's Day, but not exclude everyone who's not Irish. So my friend Mary came up with that, and I am having a lot of trouble coming up with a story about luck. So I still am in that same boat.
Well, luck is an ephemeral thing, isn't it? It's hard to describe luck.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe you don't see. Maybe you've had luck and you don't see it yet.
Right.
You know, isn't that what happens to people? Is that they have luck and they don't see that it's
sometimes you don't know if it's good or bad luck until the end.
Well, that doesn't say. You're not saying only bad luck, right? Only good luck or only bad luck. Wow. Well, this keeps you pretty busy because you have a business.
Yeah.
And you do what?
I'm a videographer, so I have two other companies. Capture Video is my corporate video company, and Jessica Pie Productions is my wedding video company. So. And
you have quite a reputation as a videographer for weddings.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Do you like them? Do you like doing that? Is there a special thing about doing them?
Yes. Actually, my favorite part of doing weddings is after I've sent the bride her DVDs or her Blu-rays, and she writes me, inevitably I get this, "We cried 7 times watching our video," and that's always my favorite part. I love making people cry.
Yeah. Well, and who took your video when you got married last year?
Actually, Michael Alvarez, who's he does videos for me, so he's one of my associate videographers. He shot my video and I shot his video, and then I'm also, you probably know Kian. He shoots some of the Speakeasy videos. He was my second camera person at my wedding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. We'll have to talk about that more, but right now we're going to take a break because we're going to come back. Don't go away. We're going to come back and Jessica is going to tell us a story.
All right, guys, we got to be smarter about what we bite on, okay? I want everyone to go outside. We're going to run Red Rover on 3.
What about you, Tony?
I'm going to run around in circles, flap my arms, and make engine noises like this.
When it comes to playing, we kids are the pros.
We're eating right, too.
We fuel up
to play 60.
Your school doesn't have a program? Be a leader. Start one.
Click today and join the movement.
I met Roy at a networking event. Okay, it was a meetup. Okay, it was a meetup for singles who like to drink, which, judging by the appearances of everybody there, meant old, overweight, and with no sense of style. Whether you think I'm attractive or not, just realize that my friend Meredith and I were the best looking people in the room, by about a mile, which was kind of disappointing considering it was people we were there to meet. And then we saw it, a beacon of hope, two guys standing together who were not Brad Pitt or Hugh Jackman, but they would do. They were wearing clothes made post-1970, could still see their toes past their bellies, and wouldn't remember where they were the day Kennedy was shot. We were in business. Like the only Democrats stranded at a Republican conference, we gravitated towards each other and started talking. Meredith got the one guy's number, and I gave mine to Roy. Roy and I had our first date over burgers. The fact that I ordered a burger instead of a salad or something seemed like a ploy to him, like I was just playing at not caring about what I was eating on a first date. But I don't play games. I just happen to love a good burger. As our date wrapped up, Roy asked me to guess how old he was, which was awkward. I'm terrible with ages, and I didn't want to insult him. He looked like he was in his mid-40s, so I said, 35? He laughed and said, no, really. So I said, 39? We played the guessing game a little longer, but he told me he'd only give me the answer on our next date. There was nothing wrong with our first date. I wasn't blown away, but I had fun. So we met for the second date. I found out how old he was. Not yet 30. It wasn't my fault that he looked like a well-preserved 40-something instead of a not-so-in-shape 20-something. We laughed about it and moved on, and he was convinced I had just been playing him. 6 months later, we were still dating, just dating. It was always fun. He was nice, made me laugh, made good money. When we hung out with my nieces, they called him Uncle Roy, and he made them laugh, and he was great with them. And then my belly started making this ticking noise, and I remembered that I was over 30. We had the talk. We should be exclusive or we should break up. He said, I like my freedom. I said, you never date anyone else. I'm the only one dating other people. He said, I just want to keep my options open. It was infuriating. I was the one with options, not him, but he didn't want to commit. So I said, fine, let's break up. He thought I was joking, but I don't play games. He didn't want to break up, so we stopped seeing other people. There was nothing wrong with our relationship. We got along great. We never fought. We had the same sense of humor. Neither of us demanded much of the other person, and I always had a date on the weekend. And then it was 6 months later, and my belly was still making that ticking noise, even if my heart wasn't exactly pounding. I was better looking than him, made him laugh, made good money, and put up with his crappy hours at work. I also cooked him a lot of great meals. It bugged me that he wasn't pushing for more of a commitment. I am a great catch, hello. It felt like time for another talk. We should move in together. He said, I don't think I'm ready for that. And I said, well, maybe we should break up then. He said, you wouldn't leave me. You love me too much. But I wasn't playing. I said, fine, let's break up. So he said, no, let's move in together. And that's when things changed. It was like those scenes in Bugs Bunny where Bugs is arguing with Elmer Fudd. Elmer says, get in the cauldron. Bugs says no. Elmer says yes. Bugs says no. Elmer says yes. Bugs says yes. And then Elmer's saying no, and Bugs is saying yes, and it's all switched around. As soon as Roy said, okay, let's move in together, I thought, oh, I don't want that. And then I was saying, no, we should take our time and talk about it. But he had outplayed me. You can rent out your townhouse and move in with me. He was ready to do it, and there I was with this ticking belly, but no pounding in my heart. I had played at pushing him away. He had played at not really being in love. It was my move. I told him we should break up for real. At first he thought I was still playing. He said, are you trying to protect me? Are you dying and just don't want me to know? I said, no, I'm not. He said, where did this come from? Are you having a nervous breakdown? I said, no, I'm not. I'm sorry. He came by a few days later, ostensibly to return my things. He asked me if we could go for a walk. We were in the woods behind my house when he turned to me and said, "You win." He held out a diamond ring and said, "I am in love with you. I'm sorry I made you wait, but I am ready to spend the rest of my life with you." I started sobbing. This wasn't what I had wanted. I said, "I'm sorry, I can't marry you. I don't really love you." He still thought it was some game. He promised me a better proposal at a later date, but I convinced him finally that I meant it. And then he told me I was crazy, and he meant it, and then we did break up for real. He had thought all along that I had been playing games. And in that moment, I realized I had been. I had been trying to make him love me because I thought he should. And in the end, I won.
Today, about 1 in 5 Americans is living with a disability. Over 50 million people, including many of our friends and neighbors, teachers and co-workers, heroes and leaders. 20 years ago, the Americans with Disabilities Act guaranteed every person the right to live, work, and participate fully in the American experience. We've come a long way since then, and we are committed to making even more progress in the years ahead. Visit disability.gov to see how you can help.
Welcome back. Now, we've just heard a story from Jessica, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and then we're going to talk to her too. If you have not been to Speakeasy DC, if you've not been to the Moth, or to many of these other new type storytelling venues, you may never have heard a deeply personal story told as she just told us. I thought that was a fabulous story.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's talk about that and the change in storytelling a little bit right now so that our audience will understand how your story is really a fine example of what happens where real, true, lived stories go on stage.
Okay.
You know, how do you feel about that? How did you come to that story? Tell us a little bit about it.
That was a tough one. So Speakeasy was doing a Sucker for Love show last year, and I guess they asked me to be in it. I think that's how it happened. And so I was trying to come up with a story that was about love, that wouldn't be too embarrassing for anyone, and that wouldn't be too, I guess, over the top depressing. Mm-hmm. So some of my relationships were out. So I just wanted to tell a story. It kind of just came to me all in a flash. I didn't know how to tell the story of a year-long relationship, and I suddenly realized that the story wasn't about everything that happened in that year. It was about the reason I stayed with someone I shouldn't have stayed with, mm-hmm. and that was the story. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So.
I think what is happening, what I was listening to, what I like about your storytelling is you always take it a little bit deeper. It's not just ha-ha and away. You know, it's not just a stand-up joke. There's so much more depth to it. Do you look for that, or is that instinctive to you?
I'd love to say it's instinctive, but I think it does. I'll say this, my earlier stories were more funny than deep. I think as I've been doing this since 2007, which isn't a terribly long time, but it's enough to get a few under my belt. I think now that I've been doing it long enough, I'm more comfortable with looking for meaning in my life and in the story. And I've had such good responses from people when I've had a story that's touched them, and I kind of feel like you can help people. Like the story that I told at the last show that you were in, where it was about my dad dying. I didn't want to tell a story about my dad dying, but there was a moral there, and there was a lesson, and there was something that people could connect to. And I really feel like if you can teach something, if you can have people come away with having learned something, having made a connection, that it is a deeper experience for the audience.
Right. So you're really talking about using your lived personal experience as the material for a show, for a story, to sort of reveal yourself, but also making stories out of your life, observing your life closely enough that you can place it in a story.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully, on most cases, have some sort of lesson there.
Right, right. So when you're in your experience now, you listen to a lot of storytellers. You have storytellers that you invite, you listen to them, you're telling yourself, and you go to speakeasy and all this. How do you think this is changing the face of storytelling today? This desire to use personal experience as your canvas, so to speak.
I don't know, because I don't know the full history of storytelling. So I don't know what it was like 10 years ago, for example. But in my experience in the last 5 or 6 years, I would say that every storyteller brings something to the table. And so if what I'm hoping to bring to the table is maybe this life lessons thing, and if other people are hoping to bring comedy to the table, and if other people are just, I think everyone brings their own individual style. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I like having a group of people because you're getting a diversity not only of personal experiences, but of style. So I think it's one of those things where I might be changing the way I'm telling stories, but I think other people are also doing their own thing as well.
Right, right,
So.
right. Well, there's a beautiful thing that happens in that, and always there is the personal viewpoint that every storyteller has. That the difference, I think, with this genre, if we can call it that, this approach, is that it's coming from a revealing of oneself. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is new. It's the same thing happened in art. I mean, that there's a revealing of oneself. Do you feel that brings you closer to the people when they come and respond to you about your story?
Yes, definitely. And I appreciate I'm sure you felt this too. I think it's very much a two-way street. I mean, when you're standing on stage, and knock on wood, this doesn't happen very often, but when you're standing on stage and you feel like your story's falling on deaf ears and people aren't responding, it's hard to go on.
Yes, it is.
So if you're standing there and you're saying something that's very personal, and you can see the audience and they're really responding, listening, they're active in their listening, then it gives you strength. So I think it not only creates a connection because I've revealed something, but it also, you're getting that back from the audience.
Right. Right. You make the story together.
Yeah, yeah.
Jessica, thank you so much for coming. Now, we need to tell these people that are watching us where to find you.
www.bettersaidthandone.com.
Bettersaidthandone.com. And even more than that, check the website and come out and see and hear the stories. You'll be amazed. You'll be surprised and delighted. Come back next month. We will have another storyteller here to tell you about their work and tell you a story. And if in the meantime you want to hear more stories, come to Friendship Heights Village Community Center the third Wednesday of the month, 7:30, and it's free to you. Thank you.